Hello, everyone, and welcome to Knights of the Pageless Library. We are a little podcast dedicated to reviewing audiobooks. I am Bo Knight, and I am joined, as always, by my brother Ryan Knight. And today we are taking a look at Empire of Imagination, Gary Gygax and the Birth of Dungeons and Dragons, written by Michael Witwer and narrated by Sam Witwer, which I think they might be brothers, which is kind of cool. Another brother team.
Yeah, I'm going to assume so. We could be completely off base on that, but I'm going to assume so.
Yeah, totally off.
Yeah, so this book is a kind of a biography about Gary Gygax and how he created Dungeons and Dragons. So this one's a little more on the serious side of things because it is kind of it's not fictional, basically. This is based in reality, which is not normally something we do. So this might be a little different for us. Let us know what you guys think about that. Please feel free to email us. kotpl.pod@gmail.com is the easiest way to get a hold of us. So let us know what you guys think about this. So if this is something you like, something you don't like, just let us know.
Yeah, and if you have like cool D&D stories, I'm down to listen.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let us know those. So this book is not super new. This came out in 2015. So it's not brand new, but still pretty relevant. At least D&D 5th edition was out when this came out, so which is the current edition that is still being played. So that is at least good that we caught it before, it went beyond that. This is the only book that Michael Witwer has written. And Sam Witwer has narrated this, and it looks like he's been part of one other book on Audible. So this is kind of these guys' thing right here.
Yeah.
So this is kind of unfair, but what did you think about Sam Witwer's performance in this?
I think he does okay. There's not like really a lot of personality to bring to this.
Exactly.
So
that's why I think it's kind of unfair.
Yeah, I think he does a good job.
I thought he did fine. I'd be interested actually to see him do a normal like fantasy novel or something like that where he could actually do characters. I would be very interested to see him do a performance like that. Yeah, I don't think he like takes away from the story or anything by any means.
No. I mean, he's really just stating facts.
Yeah, exactly. So this book comes in right at 8 hours, which is, I'm not too familiar with like biographies and stuff like that, but seemed kind of long to me.
Yeah, there was, especially like the ending bit where
Yeah,
they kind of talk about his legacy, didn't really feel like it needed to be there and kind of felt like some fluff.
sure. Yeah, and again, so we listened to this one from Audible, and it looks like you can only get this through Audible. So again, if you stumble across this one on YouTube or something like that, just some random person reading it, your mileage is probably going to vary. You could pick this up for free with your Premium Plus membership to Audible, or you could purchase this outright for $19.95. Spoiler warning: do not do that. Okay, that's
okay.
Well, I'm just saying that's a lot for any book, let alone a freaking 8-hour biography book.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you think? Was this one easy to listen to?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just really like stating events.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. Again, it is kind of a biography of Gary Gygax's life, almost from start to finish, and then his creative process in creating Dungeons and Dragons as it even up to where it's at today.
Right.
But yeah, and I would say this one's pretty easy to listen to just because I do think that Sam Witwer does a good job reading it. However, this without getting too much into spoilers, this, like, if you are a huge fan of D&D, this is not necessarily going to give you a lot of D&D, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I felt like I was tricked.
Sure.
This is a lot more of like a business book than it is like how was Gary Gygax's creative process.
Right.
And
exactly.
I was kind of expecting a lot more insights to like how he came to the ideas that he has, and that's not really here. It's a lot more about like who he married, what he was doing, like what he spent his like off time just playing board games. It's like that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah.
And like his shortcomings as like a business manager.
Sure. I mean, is there any point to going through a spoiler wall for this one? I mean, we're not really going to cover this beat by beat, so let's just what's your recommendation on this one?
See, that's really tough because I was really excited to listen to this one. And then, like, as it kept going, I was like, this is boring.
Yeah.
And not very interesting. And honestly, not even really that much about Gary Gygax. It's a lot more about like TSR and like what the business was trying to do and like all the silly stuff that they did to just like get by. And I was really expecting to be like, oh man, I'm gonna be a better dungeon master after listening to this. And you won't. You just won't. No. It's not. You might learn a little bit more about business, but that's really it. Like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't really find it all that enriching either.
Right. I'll just say that if you came here for D&D, keep looking. You're not gonna find more D&D.
That's a perfect way to put it. Just keep looking, dude. It's not here. This is the wrong rock to flip over.
And that's unfortunate because I picked this one for us to
well, you mentioned it to me. You're like, it's the biography of Gary Gygax, and I was like, I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah. And that was coming here as being a huge fan of D&D, expecting, like you said, to get more D&D, and it's not here. Okay. No. It's not at all. So with that, I think we'll go past the spoiler wall just from there, but we're not going to talk beat by beat about this. I just don't think there's nearly as much to say about it.
No,
for that.
Not really.
So, but if this is something you're interested in, again, for D&D purposes, move on. Just don't even waste your time. Okay.
Yeah. There's not a lot of D&D here.
No. Yeah. So passing the spoiler wall, the only thing I really learned from this book is it sounds like a fucking nightmare to start a business.
It does sound like a nightmare to start a business.
And to not get stabbed in the back by other people.
And it sounds like creating a creative business is like next to impossible because like if one person wants to go one way and you have another idea, you're like immediately at an impasse.
Yeah, exactly. I also, because this kind of talks about Gary's process from the beginning of his life. I mean, this literally starts from like when he is a young kid and growing up. Honestly, though, by the end of this, it's a little bit unfair. Like, obviously, I love D&D. I love playing D&D. I like the stories. I like the writing. I love all that stuff. But to fully credit Gary Gygax as like giving birth to D&D as a concept, after listening to this, that's almost unfair, actually.
It is really unfair because he was working with so many people.
Yeah. Not only was he working with a lot of people, but his interest in starting a game came from other games he was already playing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he literally just took all these other systems that were already there and already in place, and him and multiple other guys put a lot of twists on it to get us to where we are. Not even today, because like 4th edition, 5th edition, he had nothing to do with. Yeah. He only created 1st edition and AD&D and 2nd edition, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Everything past that, 3, 3.5, 4, and 5 were not, he had no part in those.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a hard time listening to it. And they're like giving him all this credit, but at the same time, they're throwing out all these other names for people who were involved. And so I'm like, instead of it being a biography about Gary Gygax, which that's fine, but I would hope, and I'm sure there is, another book out there that more focuses on D&D as a whole instead of, Gary Gygax, who, I mean, I guess he could get the credit, but there's a lot of other people could technically get the credit too, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think, he didn't like give birth to D&D. It was like it was a collaborative effort.
Yeah. And a collaborative to the point where people he thought were his friends were coming after him saying, hey, you owe me money because I came up with that. So plus they kind of gloss over the stuff, but it also sounds like he had some serious family issues because in the very beginning, with his 1-year-old and his wife extremely pregnant, he was spending 4 to 5 nights a week at other dudes' houses playing games overnight at those guys' houses. Like that's kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal.
When he did finally make a bunch of money, he went and literally blew it on fucking cars and houses and drugs.
Yeah,
like
cocaine,
like a rock star. Yeah. So, I mean, they kind of gloss over those points though too. But it's like,
well, it seems like they wanted to paint a picture that like the business was stolen from him when really what he did was squander it.
Yeah, that exactly. That's all I was kind of getting out of it too. Is I'm like, it sounds like he just didn't make that great of choices.
Yeah, he just like kept doing dumb shit.
See, and that's what's unfortunate too, is I'd be curious to see where, obviously we'll never know, but where D&D would have been if Gary and just the one original partner he was going to have, the guy who dies like shortly after they start the company. I'd be curious to see where it would be today if the two of them could have started the business without what's his face, Brian, the guy who they had to have buy in to help fund it because they didn't have enough money. But that guy turned out to be a huge asshole. Him and his fucking brother.
Yeah.
Like his brother was just like buying all millions of dollars worth of shit. And Gary, who was supposed to be the CEO, didn't even know what was happening. Like,
yeah, I know. They talk about they spent like $1 million on furniture in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, and holy shit.
And 90% of it wasn't being used. It was just in random places.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like, dude, how did you not see this stuff happening right under your nose?
I don't know. I guess like maybe willful ignorance.
Yeah, I don't know. It just it got really boring really fast. I will say that. Because it was a lot about like, oh, who's going to do this with the shares? And then I'm going to buy the shares. And then these people borrowed the shares, but this person bought them. And I was like, dude, oh my God, I don't even know what any of this means. Like,
yeah, it's a lot of like business mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. And to me, it's like business word salad because I didn't understand 90% of it. So,
I mean, I understood pretty much all of it, but it's just, I don't know. It just wasn't very interesting. It's like I came here for the D&D and I got tricked into a business lesson.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's why I was most disappointed. It is more about, like you said, the business and how he screwed it up versus that's what I thought I was going to get, his creative process. The only thing that we really got insight about is why they switched from a D6 to a D20 because it gives you a more quote unquote realistic 20% chance to get a number versus a D6. So I thought they were going to dive into that. Like, hey, this is why we do this. This is why the pluses work this way. None of it. You don't get none of it.
They don't talk about systems at all.
No. And that's kind of what I came here.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I was duped.
Yeah. They rolled a really good charisma check against us.
Dude, they freaking their deception roll was like a natural 20. And I rolled a natural 1. They're like, yeah, you believe every word this guy's saying.
Yeah.
This guy seems extremely trustworthy.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad I listened to it, but I definitely wouldn't recommend other people who are a fan of D&D. This is definitely not something you have to listen to play D&D. So
absolutely not. No.
And don't feel like you're missing something if you haven't listened to it or you
Yeah.
don't want to buy it. I'm telling you right now, you're not. So, but yeah, I don't really have a whole lot else to say about this one unless you do.
No, I'm done beating this imaginary horse.
Natty 20 on this imaginary horse.
Yeah. You break its neck and it makes a horrible sound and drops to the ground.
Yeah, with that, again, if anybody has any cool D&D stuff to email us, please feel free. Like, we would love to hear D&D stuff. We're huge nerds about that.
I would definitely would.
But again, I wouldn't recommend this even to huge fans of D&D. Actually, I especially wouldn't recommend this to huge fans of D&D.
Yeah, I guess
they'll be the ones let down the most.
If you like business, maybe check this out.
Yeah, maybe it'll show you what not to do with the business. Because they both Gary and then the people who stole the business from him just simply squandered it.
Yeah, and then Wizards of the Coast came in and saved the day.
Yeah, that was also something though towards the end that I was like, man, this is just crazy because it talks about all these other small companies that were just getting vacuumed up by these big companies, just hoovered up like Schneef. And it's just crazy because this was 7+ years ago. So it's even worse now. Those companies you thought were big are just getting vacuumed up by even bigger companies. So
seems that
way. Perfect answer to most things.
Yeah, seems that way.
But yeah, we'll stop beating this poor dead horse. What are we doing next time, Bo?
I think we haven't decided yet. Let me take a quick look.
We haven't picked a book yet. So you want to do that right now on the spot? Can I put you on the spot like that?
I mean, I know what I'm listening to right now, but it's a big ask. It's 22 hours.
Holy crap. Is it really?
Yeah. I mean, do you wanna raise one eyebrow? I say
I got a lot of driving to do. So
okay, so the next book we are going to look at is the Metro 2033. It is the book that the Metro games are based on.
Yeah, that's right up our alley because we're trying to kind of blend these things, anime, video games, audiobooks. We kind of like to bridge the gaps between some of this stuff. So, and if you hate that idea, please feel free to email it to me.
Yeah,
and we'll have a conversation about it.
Hey, listen up, dum-dums.
Yeah. How dare you?
Yeah. So yeah, I think with that, thank you everybody for listening, and we hope to see you next time.